House and Senate Republicans are ready to end the year with a gift for President Trump. After reaching a compromise Wednesday, lawmakers seem poised to meet the president's Christmas deadline. But there's still some last-minute negotiations going on in the form of tax reform talks. CBS News chief congressional correspondent Nancy Cordes shows us what's in this plan and its impact.
It's not perfect, but it is damn good.
Republicans say the hardest part is behind them now that they've crafted a compromise between the House and Senate tax bills. The final plan preserves deductions for student loans and medical expenses, which were targeted in previous bills. And it doubles the standard deduction, which Republicans say will enable millions of taxpayers to stop itemizing.
This relief gives people a simpler system and a fairer tax code.
But residents of high-tax states could still get squeezed. The plan caps the deduction for state and local income tax plus property tax at $10,000 a year. And it lowers the mortgage deduction cap from new loans worth $1 million to $750,000.
It's a monumental con job.
Republicans say they make up for those changes by lowering the marginal tax rate at every income level and by preventing the dreaded alternative minimum tax from hitting everyone but the highest earners.
The tax bill got better. It didn't get worse.
But today, a pair of GOP senators balked because the bill only hikes the child tax credit by $100, a big backtrack from the Senate's previous bill.
Unless they can figure out a way to add to the 1,100 figure, I won't support the bill.
I think that Senator Rubio will be there for sure.
President Trump has called the plan a Christmas present, but Democrats argue it's mostly a gift to big business, permanently slashing the corporate tax rate from 35% to 21% without cutting many corporate loopholes. The personal tax cuts, on the other hand, are temporary, and Obamacare's individual mandate is eliminated, which could boost the number of uninsured Americans.
One thing we still haven't seen is the bill itself. It's still being written, though House and Senate Republicans promise that we will get the final version on Friday in advance of what they hope will be a final vote on Monday and Tuesday. Errol?
And in your piece, Nancy, you mentioned that President Trump seems confident that Senator Rubio will come around, but Republican Thad Cochran has been absent of late due to health issues. So I'm wondering how many votes the party has or feels it has at this point.
It's hard to say because certainly a lot of Senate Republicans are expressing enthusiasm, they're expressing confidence, but without seeing A, the final bill, and B, the final analysis of the bill by the Joint Committee on Taxation, those bipartisan number crunchers, it's impossible to say for sure whether folks like Bob Corker of Tennessee, who voted against his party's plan last time around, is going to look at it more favorably this time around. Marco Rubio, same story. He made this same threat when the Senate passed its original version a couple of weeks ago. He said he was holding out for a larger child tax credit. But in the end, he went along with the bill and voted yes. So we still have to wait to see how serious this threat really is and whether Republicans can simply do a little tinkering, raising the child tax credit, let's say, from $1,100 to $1,200, and that will be enough for him. We still don't know.
I mean, it's also very telling that Vice President Pence is now delaying his trip to the Middle East because of this potential tax vote. What does it say about the bill itself if the vice president has to once again cast the tie-breaking vote?
Well, what it really says is that Republicans have such a slim majority in the Senate that it is exquisitely difficult for them to pass anything if they are not interested in picking up Democratic votes. They can only afford to lose 2 Republicans. And as you point out, you've got a few on the fence and you've got 1 or 2 who are ill as well. And so Vice President Pence knows that he may be called on to cast that tie-breaking vote. Republicans Republicans, of course, would love to have their entire party hang together and vote yes. They've got more wiggle room in the House, but he needs to be here for them because it's only going to get more difficult if this gets delayed until January, Errol, because as you know, the Democrats just picked up a seat in the special election in Alabama. So when they come back in January, the new margin will be 51-49. And then Republicans will only be able to afford one GOP defector on any big legislation.
And all of that really speaks to how important and valuable these Republican seats, these Republican votes are to get this through. We also know Senator John McCain may not be able to vote on this bill. He is currently at Walter Reed. Do we have any updates on how he's doing at this time?
Well, all his office is saying is that he is being treated for, quote, normal side effects of his cancer treatment. As you know, he was diagnosed with glioblastoma, which is a very aggressive form of brain cancer, back in July. He is undergoing aggressive treatment involving radiation and chemotherapy. And so he is now back in the hospital. But his friends here on Capitol Hill have been downplaying this setback. Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, for example, told us that he expects McCain to make a full recovery and to come back to the Senate and serve in the Senate for a long time to come. But I can tell you, Errol, there is a great deal of concern here on Capitol Hill tonight among Republicans, Democrats, senators, aides, who are all very worried about McCain's health, and they're hoping that Graham is right.
Yeah, and we certainly join them in that hope. Nancy Cordes joining us from Capitol Hill. Thanks, Nancy.
You're welcome.